Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Have you ever watched poker players? I don't know whether you watch poker on TV or you've gone through a casino and you've watched, or maybe you play poker yourself. If you look at the professional poker players, the ones that are making the big bets versus ones like me, I'm an amateur, it is actually quite easy to tell the difference. The difference is that amateur poker players will actually play about 50% of their hands. And that is really signaling that they have no strategy. They're just in there playing, and hopefully they get one. Versus professional players only play about 15% of their hands. That's right, amateurs 50, professionals play only about 15% of their hands. They're very selective, they're managing their resources, and that includes cognitive, mental, keeping track of the game. They're also risk aware, and they've also got resource management of their pocket of money to invest. So that's really easy to pick out what is the difference between a professional poker player and an amateur. The same applies to innovation. You can look at professional innovators and amateur innovators and quickly tell the difference. So how do you? Are there signs and symbols? Well, let me share with you a couple of observations. So, you know you're an amateur innovator if your innovation pipeline looks like a game of whack-a-mole. Ideas are popping up everywhere, but none of them ever stick around to ever get launched. If that's you or your organization, that's not really the way you should drive innovation. Another is, you know you're an amateur innovator if your idea board resembles a collage of sticky notes more than an innovation strategy. Because who needs focus when you've got chaos? And there's enough chaos in the innovation process. You want to get chaos out. Another one, you know you're an amateur innovator if your motto is ready, fire, aim. And you find yourself constantly running around and cleaning up the collateral damage from your innovation projects. Another is, you know you're an amateur innovator if you regularly try to boil the ocean, believing that multitasking and spreading yourself way too thin is an Olympic sport. And then another one is, you know you're an amateur innovator if your risk assessment involves crossing your fingers and hoping for the best because a detailed analysis is for the birds, right? Can't waste your time on doing the strategy. So, how many of those have you experienced? I have experienced all of them. I have actually been the instigator of all of them in the organization. It's not a negative. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm pointing the finger back at me. But that is indicative of taking an amateurish kind of thought process towards innovation. So what are the traits of professional innovators, or what I'm calling professional innovators? One is a professional innovator has a strategic thinking mindset. They have a strategy. They have an innovation vision. They establish and think about that long and hard up front, and then begin driving innovation activities. A professional prioritizes and selects high potential projects. If you're selecting half your projects to start working on, like an amateur poker player, switch to being the professional poker player when it comes to innovation and look at 10 to 15%. Conserve your mental cognitive load, but also your resources, people, time, and money. So prioritize, select high potential projects. The other is effective resource management. Look, you will never have all of the people, time, and money you would want. So you have to manage it. Professional innovators, we want to be creative. We want to be in there. We want to have hands-on projects. But as a leader, you need to be managing effective resources. You got to look at that and manage it. Look, I would love to be more active in projects. I'm not in my role as a CEO. I don't get to put my hands on the projects as much as I used to. And yes, it's frustrating, but I've chosen the role I'm in order to make it so that the rest of my team can be highly innovative and execute. And last, innovation professionals, they are risk aware, not risk averse. Risk averse is you're trying to avoid risk. You're trying to minimize risk. Risk aware is you're aware of the risk and you have plans in place to be able to handle that risk. If something should go wrong, what's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? You're fully risk aware and you manage accordingly. So are there some actionable steps you can take for elevating your professionalism as an innovator? Yes. One is hone your strategic planning skills. This is not project management. This isn't building Gantt charts. This is strategic planning, thinking about scenarios of the future, thinking about all kinds of things that could impact the strategy and execution of your organization and translating that into your innovation strategic planning. If you're not familiar with it, go out, hire someone to learn. There's courses out there that you can take, but hone your strategic planning skills and in particular, your innovation strategic planning skills. Second is set clear and achievable goals. Get alignment on what constitutes success. What is the objective of your innovation efforts? Get that clear across the entire organization. Three is prioritize important over urgent tasks. Don't get sucked into the urgent. The best way to do this is what I call the Eisenhower matrix. I've done a podcast over that, so you can actually head over to killerinnovations.com. Check that out, Eisenhower matrix. At least I think it's in the podcast. It may be on the blog. If it's on the blog, go to philmckinney.com. You can search for it, or you can just say Eisenhower matrix, Phil McKinney, and it'll tell you which one and where it's at. The other is get comfortable with embracing failure as a learning tool. Professionals don't mean you're perfect and that you're never going to make a mistake. Embrace failure as a learning tool. And then last, but actually probably the most important is implement rigorous idea evaluation. Rigorous. Don't let projects kind of sneak through, or don't think that you want to tell somebody that their idea is not all that good or to say no to somebody. That's where you act like an amateur and you have 50% of all your ideas you're executing on versus having the discipline and only executing on 15% of your ideas. The difference between a professional and an amateur, whether that's poker or innovation. So as I wrap this up, look, the reason I made this was I've been having conversations with a number of you who are innovation leaders or trying to establish innovation teams within your organization. And when I hear about the things that you're experiencing, they all tend to be more on the amateur end. And look, it's easy to slide back, to be backslid into an amateur because the intensity of the activities, the amount of things that you have going on. So you need to constantly check yourself and raise that professional effort within your innovation efforts. And look, it's a mindset, and you constantly have to remind yourself. Prioritize your innovation strategy, prioritize your innovation management, and your risk assessments. Be risk aware, not risk averse. Look, anyone can innovate. you want to be a professional. So that's it for this week. We'll be back soon with another show. Don't forget to subscribe. Give us some feedback. If there's topics you're interested in hearing or more topics like ones we've done before, drop me a note, post in the comments, send me a message via social, however you want to find us. And with that, work on your ideas, raise the bar. We all are in that amateur category. We are all constantly striving to be innovation professionals. Work on it each and every day. And take your ideas and go change the world. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.